Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. Welcome to my channel. My name is Micah. Today I'm doing my January wrap-up. Today is the last day of January as this is going live, and I managed to read 3 books this month. It's a little less than my usual. Usually it's like 4 to 5, but I've been swamped by grading, so even most of my days I stay late at work or I have to work late at home, and there's just not been that much time for reading actually. So a lot of these I finished just the other day because I knew I wanted to finish a couple of books so I could have a video as well. And I was like in the middle of like 2 of them that I knew I could finish quite easily. So 2 of the books I have as physical copies and 1 of them is an audiobook. So I think we can start with the physical books, and the first book I finished this year is The Beastly Bones by William Ritter. I featured this book in my What I Would Like to Read in 2020 video because I had started this series at the end of 2019 and I knew I wanted to get around to it. This was as enjoyable as that first edition. If you don't know what this series is about, it is about a girl called Abigail Rook, and she arrives in New England in, what's the town called again? Ooh, I'm not entirely sure, but some town in New England. She arrives from Europe and she's trying to make her own way in life, dependent from her parents, and she meets a detective called Jackaby. And Jackaby is a bit of a peculiar kind of man. He doesn't have the best standing with the law. Some people in law enforcement absolutely hate him. Other people see merit in the work that he does. And what he does is sort of investigate murder cases that seem a bit weird. And in the first book, we already get a glimpse of that weirdness. And in the second book, the action is taken out of the main town where it is set and more like upstate to like more like a foresty, like rural area. And there they find what the title refers to, Beastly Bones. I can't say too much about this other than that because then I would give away some of the plot. There's a little bit of romance involved in this one, which I do really like, but Abigail is quite headstrong, especially for the time period which this is set in, which is the late 19th century. But she wants to be an archaeologist at some point, and that's why she left home to go on a dig, and it went a bit south. And now she gets to relive that sort of like archaeologist moment. So there's a great deal of science actually linked to the time period that is given in this book, so I quite enjoyed that. And I just really like the banter. These characters are really lovely. These are marketed as YA books. They are published by a YA publisher. But I feel that the themes and some of like the details you get in this story are a bit gruesome actually. They are definitely not for the faint of heart. Like it gets quite bloody and gruesome, and like likable characters die or do things that they shouldn't be doing, and like morals are a bit gray sometimes as well. So there is quite a lot of action in here too, and it just has some really good yeah, it just has a really good plot line. These books only have like 300 to 400 pages. I can read this in a day. It's super enjoyable, super entertaining. Are these the best books I've ever read? No, they are not super memorable or like life-changing from that respect, but for me this was a good solid 4-star read. And then the other book I finished just last night as I'm filming this, and that's The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. I said in my like anticipated reads for 2020, no, what was it? My 2020 TBR, where I mentioned this one as well, that I wanted to try some of these first books in series that I have sitting on my shelves because I'm not sure whether I will like the entire series, so that's why I only own the first book. And I decided to just make good on that promise straight away and read this, The Kiss of Deception. And this is a fantasy YA story that is supposed to be quite romance heavy, but without too much romance, which confused me. And if you read the blurb on the back, it definitely sounds like it. What this has is a love triangle, which, and the love triangle isn't really a love triangle. You know what I mean? Like the love comes quite late in the story. And what this starts off with, like the premise that you get at the start of this book, is that a young girl flees her wedding day, and that the jilted prince, who she was supposed to marry, and an assassin track her down. I think it took about 50 pages for them to do that. And that was one thing that I didn't like about this story. I also felt that this first book was quite a well-rounded story, so I personally don't feel the need to continue this series. So let me explain this a little bit further. So we're following Leah, that's the girl who flees her wedding day. She's headstrong, she's clever, she's smart, she's witty, she's a princess, and she's like, I'm not this person that my family wants me to be, so she flees, leaves with one of her servants, I believe, to a town in the realm and works as a barmaid pretty much. And then, you know, events unfold. These two guys find her, but you don't know which one is which and who is who, and she definitely has no clue either. So we kind of discover the story as she discovers it, and I quite liked it. I liked Leah as a character very much. I thought she was, you know, flawed in the right places, but still made pretty logical decisions. But in the end, I just felt like there's no urgency to the story. I don't know if that makes sense. What I mean by that is that I feel that everything sort of just happens because it happens, and not because there's a plot that has a plan why things need to happen. And I'm pretty sure that I would only get that if I read the entire series, because I read the blurbs of like books 2 and 3, and there seems to be like a bigger thing. But it really seems to me as if these are like 3 standalone books that have like the same characters. So you need to follow their story arcs in order for it to make sense. But that in terms of plot, the action that takes place and the things that are happening are just like step, 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 step. And it's not because step 1 happens that that's why step 10 happens. You know what I mean? There's not a real synergy in the plot. And I felt that that is something that I find a lot in YA. And that's why I find it enjoyable, but not necessary to continue with this book. I did give it 4 stars, but I just feel that there's going to be more romance and more love triangle in at least the second book, and that's something I'm not really into, so I'm just not invested enough in these characters to really want to follow them for another 2 books that are only going to be longer than this, I believe, too. So this is enjoyable. I think that in the end, at some point in time, I might even want to reread this. Like, I really did like it. I think I read a good chunk, like I read like 75% of this in a day, and I couldn't put it down. So I did really like it from that perspective. But in terms of like overall plot line, let's just say it was a bit predictable and not that interesting. I was like, really like, especially towards the end of the book, I was like, okay, is anything still going to happen? Because it just felt like it wasn't really going anywhere. And that's why I will not be continuing the series. But this book, as a standalone, I did enjoy. The third and final book that I read was an audiobook, so I'll make sure to put the picture up on the screen. And it was the second book in the Gower Street Detective series by M.R.C. Kasacian, if I'm saying that correctly. And it's called The Curse of the House of Foskett. And this book follows March Middleton, and in the first book, she moves from her parental home because both her parents have passed away to move in with her guardian because she is an English lady in the Victorian era, and then of course if you're unmarried you need someone to take care of you. So she moves in with Sidney Grice, and Sidney Grice is the detective from the series title, and he is like a more cynical version of Sherlock Holmes, you could say. It's like he has that like Sherlockian, like, oh yeah, I knew that kind of thing, but where Sherlock you can still sort of like, Sidney Grice is possibly the most unlikable character on the planet. He is continuously condescending, tells March she's not clever, she's not smart, and she is doing all these things that a lady shouldn't be doing, and still he sort of encourages her by taking her on all of these cases and missions, and in the end, of course, she also solves some of the clues of the cases. And I did feel that the pacing in this story was a bit, so again, it was a 4-star read for me, not perfect, because I felt it really slowed around the 2/3 mark of the book. Maybe it had to do with the fact that I was listening to it rather than reading it myself. I have to say that I tend to read to audiobooks a lot right before I go to sleep. So with this book, what definitely happened a few times is that it sort of kept playing as I had already fallen asleep. So I definitely had to like pick up the thread a couple of times to see where I was at. So that probably didn't help. But what definitely didn't help was that in the story we get a like death club that has been set up, and these people all start dying one after another. And the first person dies in Sidney Grice's office. So he doesn't want to be implicated in that murder, and that's why he sort of gets involved. But since there are like several members and most of them die, I mean, that's not a spoiler. It's sort of like you get case after case after case after case, and after a few, you're like, was this really necessary? Like, do we need to get all of these murders before we can come to the conclusion? And then the conclusion of it, which I think the author intended to be cleverly done, and like Sidney Grice, like, ooh, I knew this all along. Like, Sidney Grice is slowly starting to string things together. But the final sort of whodunit part of the book, I thought it was a bit weak, actually, because I just didn't feel that the book had enough red herrings to put you on the wrong, like, there just weren't enough clues that really sort of ended up pointing in the person's direction. But you really did need the entire explanation that Sidney Grice gives for blaming this person in the end, because else you just wouldn't get it. So I felt we didn't get enough story about the final villain, you could say. And that was, I think, a little bit lacking. It was very much like case focused, and yeah, just not great. And I felt it was going on a little bit too long. So I was like, okay, so now this person has been taken care of, so now it's probably like done. And then we still got like another 200 pages or so. So that was, to me, it dragged a little too much. And also towards the end, like, we get the whodunit, this is the person who's behind it all. And then we get chapter after chapter after chapter of the author trying to wrap up the story and leaving us a hint for the next book. So I do really like the characters in these books. Like, I love unlikable characters, you guys. I love characters who are just angry miscreants who say things that they know they shouldn't say, and they are just completely unapologetic about it. That's what I like. So I have a soft spot for Sidney Grice M.R.C, definitely. She's a fierce, independent lady in a time period where that was not done. And I think that was really well played out too. So I just really like the banter between the two, and that's why I keep reading it. So I already have the third one lined up in my Storytel app to start listening to that this month. So hopefully I can finish it a little bit more quickly than this one, because it took a couple of weeks to get through a 12-hour audiobook, whereas I can finish that in like a week or two rather than 4. So yeah, we'll see. So those are the 3 books that I read this month. Leave me in a comment down below what books you have been reading. Maybe I can take inspiration from it. I know that the next book I'm going to read is the 3rd book in this series, but I found that there is a 4th one. That's what I will be doing next for sure, and hopefully I can read my more like 4 books a month, but according to Goodreads, I'm still on track, which I don't get. But still, I already feel behind because it was only 3 books this month. I do have a vacation at the end of February, so that should help with upping the numbers a little bit. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you'd like to see more by me. I make 1 book video a week on this channel, so stay tuned for more. Bye for now.